You are a driver. Sonoran Desert, midnight. The metal of the trunk lid is screaming, groaning as it bows outward in a slow, sickening curve. A pale, three-knuckled finger, thin as a spider's leg, punches through the steel. It twitches, testing the cold night air. The car is dead. You killed the engine. You do not know why. Here's how you got here. 3 days ago, you were just a mechanic. You worked at a shop in Nogales, the kind of place where the smell of gasoline and grease is ground into the concrete floor. You were good. You could diagnose a bad alternator by the sound it made, tell the specific wear on a brake pad by the dust it left on a rim. Your hands were always stained black at the cuticle. Your daughter, Sophia, is 6. She has a hole in her heart. Not a metaphorical one, a literal one. Atrial septal defect. The doctors use calm, clinical words. They talk about procedures and recovery times. They do not talk about the cost, but the numbers are printed on the papers they hand you. The numbers look like a phone number for a city in another country. Your wife, Elena, watches you at night. She sees you staring at the ceiling, doing the math in your head. 2 salaries. Rent, diet, food, the cost of Sophia's medication. The numbers never add up. The surgery remains a distant, impossible star. You are a good man in a bad equation. A man named Rico came into the shop. He drove a black sedan with no plates. He watched you work. He saw the way you meticulously torqued the bolts on a cylinder head, the steady confidence in your hands. He saw the exhaustion in your eyes. He offered you a coffee, then a job. 1 night. 1 drive. No questions. The pay was a number that solved your equation. It was the number that fixed your daughter's heart. You told Elena you were taking an overnight job, a special transport for a mining company up north. She packed you a thermos of coffee and kissed your cheek. Her eyes told you she did not believe you. Her kiss told you she understood. The instructions came through a burner phone. A black duffel bag was left in an unlocked locker at the bus station. Inside, keys to a gray sedan, the phone, a bottle of water, and $10,000 in cash. Half now, half on completion. You counted it twice. It felt like paper. It did not feel like a solution. The car was anonymous. A 4-door, a few years old, clean toy. But you are a mechanic. You felt it in the suspension. It was heavy, reinforced. The tires were run flats, military grade. The window tint was darker than legal. This car was built for a purpose. You did not let yourself think about what that purpose was. The pickup was at a defunct meat packing plant south of the city limits. The instructions were precise. Park at the loading dock. Leave the engine running. Do not get out of the car. You sat for 17 minutes, watching the dust dance in your headlights. The air was still. 2 men emerged from the shadows. They wore dark work clothes and their faces were covered. They did not speak to you. They did not look at you. They opened the trunk. You heard a heavy thud, the sound of a crate being loaded. It was a large metal footlocker, the kind the Army uses. It was sealed with 4 heavy-duty clasps. They slammed the trunk. One of them tapped twice on your rear windshield. The signal. Go! The phone buzzed. A new destination appeared on an encrypted navigation app. A single glowing line snaking through the desert. The app had no name. Just a logo. A stylized hourglass, empty. The Hollow Hour. Rico had mentioned the name once, in a whisper. You drove. For the first 2 hours, the only sound was the hum of the tires on asphalt. You focused on the road, on maintaining the speed limit exactly. The protocol was clear. No stops. No deviations. You drank from the water bottle. You thought of Sophia's smile. You were in control. This was just a job. You were a delivery driver. The first sound was a soft thump from the trunk. You barely noticed it over the radio. A shift in the cargo, you told yourself. The road was uneven here. But 10 minutes later, it came again. Dine. A dull, solid impact. Not a rattle. Not a shift. A single, deliberate sound. You turned the radio down. You listened. Silence. You exhaled. Your mind was playing tricks on you. fueled by coffee and nerves. You were a father doing what was necessary. That was all. Contrandata. It was rhythmic now. A slow, steady beat. A heartbeat. A heavy, languid pulse coming through the rear seats, vibrating up your spine. Thump, thump, thumping, dido. You checked the rearview mirror. Nothing but empty road stretching back into the black. You tapped your fingers on the steering wheel, trying to find a different rhythm, trying to overwrite the one coming from the trunk. It didn't work. The beat was insistent. It felt ancient. Then, a new sound. A low, abrasive scratching. The sound of metal on metal. It was frantic. Desperate. I knew. Something was scraping the inside of the footlocker. You imagined sensitive electronics, jostled loose, a stray wire sparking against the casing. You had to imagine that. The alternative was unthinkable. The app on the burner phone pinged. A single word from your handler. Status? Your thumb hovered over the keyboard. Your hands were slick on the wheel. You thought of the $10,000 in the duffel bag on the passenger seat. You thought of the second payment. You thought of a hospital room, a steady AKG machine, a healthy child. You typed back. Nominal. You are a liar. A low, wet, rasping sound followed the thump. It is the sound of a breath. A very large breath, pulled through fluid. The scratching stopped. The thumping stopped. There was only this sound. An inhale that lasted 10 seconds. A rattling exhale that lasted 20. Whatever was in the trunk was alive. You gripped the wheel. The reinforced suspension made sense now. The sealed container made sense. The protocol? No, stop Shein dia. It wasn't to protect the package. It was to protect everyone else. The air in the car grew cold. Not a draft. A deep, penetrating cold that seeped from the back seat. You turned the heat on full blast. Hot, dry air blew from the vents, but the chill did not recede. It intensified. You looked at the rear windshield. A thin layer of frost was blooming on the inside of the glass, starting from the bottom, near the trunk. It spread in delicate, crystalline patterns, like a dying fern. The breathing sound stopped. For a full minute, there was silence again. It was worse than the noise. You found yourself holding your breath, listening. Waiting. A violent bang erupted from the trunk. The entire car frame shuddered. It was not a thump. It was a blow. A dent appeared in the trunk lid, pushed outward from within. You swerved, correcting the wheel. Another bang. Louder. The trunk buckled. The scratch of the lock mechanism gave a tortured squeal. The phone rang. Not a ping. A call. You answered. The voice was the same as the one from the app, filtered through a digital modulator, cold and synthetic. The asset is agitated. Do not stop the vehicle. Maintain your course. Something's wrong, you said. Your own voice sounded thin, alien. It's trying to get out. That is an expected complication. The container is rated for this. Proceed to the drop-off. You are being compensated for the risk. The line went dead. Expected complication. They knew. Naya, well, bewa, handoi, alnu, me, daisy, no she. They knew what they had put in your car. You were not a driver. You were a cage, and the cage was breaking. The metal of the trunk began to tear. A high-pitched, grinding shriek filled the car. It was the sound of a can opener, slow and powerful. You could see it in the rearview mirror. A dark line appeared in the buckled metal. It widened. Then you saw the finger. It poked through the new opening. Long, pale, and segmented, like something pulled from the deepest part of the ocean. It was bone white. It flexed, feeling the air. Another followed it, then a third. They were not fingers on a hand. They were limbs on something else. They moved with an insect's logic, twitching and probing. You pressed the accelerator to the floor. The engine roared. The speedometer needle climbed. 90. 100. 110. The desert became a blur. The glowing line on the app was your only guide. Your only hope. The tearing sound from the trunk was a constant frenzy now. A low, chittering vocalization joined the chorus. It was a sound of discovery, of imminent freedom. The frost on the rear window had now covered it completely, a blind fold of ice. The app chimed. Destination ahead, 500 meters. You saw it. A single bare light bulb hanging from a wooden pole in the middle of nowhere, casting a sickly yellow circle on the sand. A black van was parked beside it, its engine off. Two figures stood waiting. They were dressed in full tactical gear, heavy vests and helmets. They wore gas masks. Their faces were black voids of glass and rubber. You slammed on the brakes, skidding to a stop 50 feet from them. Car died. You didn't turn the key. The engine just stopped, as if the cold had finally reached it. The chittering in the trunk ceased. The tearing stopped. A profound silence fell over the desert. One of the figures raised a hand, gesturing for you to get out of the car. Slowly, you opened the door. Your legs felt weak. The desert air was cold, but it felt clean, real. You left the duffel bag with the money inside. It didn't matter anymore. You stood by the driver's side door, your hands raised. The two figures did not approach the car. They did not look at the trunk. They walked toward you. Their heavy boots crunched on the gravel. One of them stopped 10 feet away. He lifted a small speaker attached to his vest. The distorted, synthetic voice of your handler filled the night. The transport was a failure. The primary container has been compromised. You stared at him. Then at the trunk of your silent car. What is it? The asset requires a vessel. It imprints on the nearest biological host during a breach. Proximity is the key. The words did not connect at first. They were just sounds. Vessel, da-da. Imprints. Proximity. The figure took another step closer. The other one flanked you, cutting off any escape. You were in proximity for 3 hours, the voice crackled from the speaker. The primary container held. The imprinting did not. You are the new container. You looked down at your hands. They were shaking. You looked at your chest. You felt nothing. No change. No pain. Then you heard it. Faintly. From inside your own body. Thump. Thump. It was a new rhythm. A slow, heavy beat that did not match your own panicked heart. It was coming from deep within your chest cavity. Something was growing. Something was waking up. The two figures raised their weapons. They were not guns. They were something else. Canisters and hoses. The last thing you feel is not fear. It is a cold, hollow expansion beneath your ribs. You have delivered the package. That's a wrap. The Sonoran Desert is one of the most heavily traversed, yet desolate, human smuggling corridors in the world, with thousands of individuals going missing in its vast expanse each year. Subscribe for more.